Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Clouds Edge to Edge Transformation, not only in technology, but in supporting people to cross the digital divide. A lot of people don't even have access to basic education. Shivoo is one person I got to know during my Synopsys days. Shivoo, tell us about you. How did you become this person who has two amazing lives?
Thank you, Shankar, for inviting me. I've seen some amazing people you've interviewed. It's my privilege to be a part of this platform. My name is Shivananda. You rightly mentioned I have kind of two lives going on right now. One is my corporate life. I work in a company called as Synopsys, where we provide tools, IPs, and support design companies to work and design and verify and tape out cutting edge technology chips. On the second life I am an educationalist. I have my own school. I run an NGO and I work with various educational institutes in India in helping the underprivileged to get the required education and skilling so that they can be placed in companies.
So, Shivu, I can understand getting into technology like you and I did was fairly straightforward. But how did you, in parallel, get into education? What motivated you first to get into education and second to do both side by side?
Let me go back in time. One of the things which I thought I would never do was study beyond my undergrad program. I completed my engineering in electronics and communication. I had my VLSI as my elective. And I got a job very early, immediately after I finished my engineering. And I thought this is no more education for rest of life. It's been 27 years right now, and I'm still studying. I've never stopped going to college. I have gained multiple degrees. It's not the certificate which matters, it's the experience and the exposure which really mattered for me. I got an opportunity to study in multiple different tier one schools across the world. I was very fortunate. The companies I worked with supported me in this educational journey I took. Today, when I look back, a simple guy with an undergrad program has a doctorate degree and multiple management degrees. So I'm very proud of this journey because I was able to balance both. So when I was doing this education, one of the things I really noticed was not everybody is as privileged as us. I never had any challenges while growing up. I had a wonderful big family which supported me throughout my childhood. As I went to the college, I was one of the privileged person in the society. But when I look around me, I see a lot of people with fantastic talent, fantastic capability, but do not have exposure, do not have the right guidance from people. It's not just the money, it's just the guidance sometimes. It's that hand holding you do. It's a small nudge you give to some of these people, which makes a big difference in their life. That's when I started teaching in colleges. I worked in Intel before Synopsys. This was way back in 98. I came back to India in early 2001. I joined Synopsys. I parallelly started looking around and started interacting with multiple colleges. I had done my master's by that time in OGI in Oregon. So I thought, why don't I teach VLSI subjects to the students? So that's when I started engaging with the kids in engineering colleges. I did this for many years. Later, I figured out in 2012 that if I really have to make a difference to the kids, I have to go to the higher and primary school level. By the time they come to the engineering undergraduate program, the fundamentals, if it's not clear, there's very little you can do in working with them and doing the finishing school. I was one of those who completely believed that when you spend 4 years in your undergrad, you should not be needing another 6 months finishing school. You should be able to complete all these things in the 4 years which was given to you, which meant that your fundamentals were weak. So I started looking at the primary and higher education at that space. I didn't have much experience again in that space. So I thought the best way to get experience is to do it myself. So when I was at the peak of my career in Synopsys, I was actually just a director 1 year in Synopsys. That's when I quit my job. The entire management supported me. I actually worked with one of the biggest educational institute here, PES College. PES at that time was trying to set up a school. They had undergrad, postgrad, and medical colleges. They gave me an opportunity to actually set up the school and run it. The school name was Amatra Academy. I was very fortunate to be a part of this group who gave me an opportunity to set it up and run it myself. That gave me a fantastic experience in working with K-10 space, K-10 to K-12. So that gave me a very good exposure in terms of what is the primary need of education at the primary level, at the high school level, and at the college level, and what can be done so that kids not only crack the entrance examination to go to the right UG programs, but they excel in the UG programs, right? If you really want the kids to do good in the UG programs, the fundamentals has to be very strong. The whole effort in the school was not just to get and crack the examination, because there are many schools which do that, but once they join the UG program, how can they stand out in the crowd? That was the main focus area we had. School is running perfectly, really nice right now. I'm very happy to see next set of management taken over the school and running it. It's one of the top 10 schools in Karnataka, in Bangalore. That gave me a very good exposure to the school. That's when I started looking at the underprivileged segment, because this school was in a city. which meant the kids who come into the schools were all privileged kids. The challenges you have with the privileged kids to get into the undergrad is very, very different than the underprivileged sector. That's when I joined back industry. In fact, MediaTek was trying to set up a site in India. They had a software center in Delhi, but they didn't have a chip design center in India. In fact, Synopsys referred me to MediaTek. MediaTek management reached out to me and asked me if I want to come back to industry. The school was running perfectly fine. The second level of leadership was taking control of the school. I thought it's a good time for me to come back to the industry. I joined MediaTek as the India head. I started the MediaTek Design Center here. I was the first employee in MediaTek in Bangalore Center. The team grew to 500 people. That's when I joined back Synopsys. It's been 5 years now back in Synopsys. During this time in MediaTek is when I looked at the underprivileged area and thought, why don't I start working with them? We started with a very basic teaching them English. So we thought the biggest gap we had was the kids were really good in their science and maths program. There was absolutely no challenge over there. But the bigger problem was they didn't have the right exposure. They didn't have the right guidance. English was a big challenge. So we thought, why don't we start teaching them English and help them dream bigger? See, one of the things which I've noticed is you talk to a child in a city, you ask them, what do you want to become? You'll hear things like, I want to become a F1 racer. I want to become a biologist, right? I want to become a professor in Stanford University. I want to be like Elon Musk. I want to run my own company. This is what you hear in the city. But when you go to the village, they're very scared to even dream big. The maximum I heard was, I want to become a teacher in my school. I want to be a police constable or inspector in the village they were a part of. Nobody told me that I want to be an engineer or I want to start a company which will give thousands of jobs to Indians. So I started looking back and trying to understand why is this. It all came down to the exposure they had, the experiences they had. They never were exposed to people who had done it. The only way to motivate kids in the rural village is to put them in front of people who have done it, show them that irrespective of the background, the system gives you enough opportunities for you to excel in the areas which you're passionate. That was the goal with which we started our NGO. The name of our NGO is called Belakoo. Belakoo is what you see behind me. Belakoo in our local language, Kannada, means light. The idea was to give light to the students, put them in the right path. That was our motivation with which we started. It's a weekend program. All our kids go to government school or small private schools. We take them on the weekend and work with them on giving them the right life skills, which is required for them to excel in that K-12 space. We also help them with any educational assistance they need. If they need help in any specific subject, we tie them up with the tutors, we give them books, we give them the required guides, we even give them the tablets when required. We have given them access to all the different technologies which is available so that they can access these technologies, get the right exposure for them to excel in the K-12 space. It's been a fantastic 7 years. Me and my partner, Smita Hemmige, who's a CMO in a company called as Answer, work with these kids. And today we have 3 campuses. Very happy to see the smiling faces. So one of the first campus, we have today 175 kids. We adopted a village next to it. We have around 75 kids there. And started a third campus above my house. We have around 50 kids over there. Just 2 days back, we opened another campus in northern part of Bangalore. We just got 18 kids, the first class. I'm sure we'll get more than 100 kids in the next coming weeks. The focus and effort has been same across the different campuses. We focus on the STEAM program. Through Belakoo, we've been able to connect with like-minded people who volunteer with us and be a part of this education. That's been my journey on the nonprofit side. I'm very proud and very happy to be part of Synopsys who supports these initiatives. Many of our Synopsys employees also do come in, and their kids actually. More heartening to see Synopsys employees' kids volunteer with us in some of these programs which we do across our state.
This is amazing, Shivoo, that you are able to shed the light on young minds in underprivileged areas where there is very little access to good education and to good dreams. There's a belief among the privileged, educated few that all you need is edtech companies like Byju's. Once you have all that, the whole country or the whole world will get educated by itself. What has been your experience?
Technology has its own good and bad. In every aspect of different industries it's been a part of. I feel technology has a similar good and bad effect for education also. It's kind of a beast to be tamed for your advantage. It can be a huge distraction, but when used correctly, it can be the biggest booster and enabler for learning. That's where we need to strike the balance. We also need to realize that technology is the only way to scale education and increase access. There is no way you will be able to reach out to the corners of India with the best teachers available in all the centers. I am very lucky to have mentors, my friends, family, come in and work with us in Belakoo. But I'm sure there is so many other parts of Karnataka and India where access becomes a big problem. So technology definitely is the only way to scale education and increase access. So I don't even debate on that part of it. When we were kids, we used to go to school for information. We didn't even have books at home. School library was everything for us. But today, information is everywhere. The question is not about giving information in the school, but how do you really assimilate this information? That's more important. Sometimes it's insufficient information, sometimes it's wrong information which goes to the kids. What is more important is, as a teacher, as a facilitator, engagement becomes a key challenge. Irrespective of which kind of a tech we are talking about, content doesn't mean anything to me. It's all about the engagement. It's all about how we are using the technology to make it happen. What has technology done? One of the biggest challenge we have as teachers is kids today are exposed to different engaging and interesting channels of information. It's a big challenge for a teacher. Classroom management is becoming a challenge right now because the kids get bored. Chalk and talk doesn't work anymore. If you're expecting the teacher to turn around and start writing on the whiteboard, hoping that kids will understand, I don't think kids really like it, because the kind of videos, the kinds of different channels of information the kids get is fantastic. When we were studying in college, interdisciplinary was a big thing. The education is going through a transdisciplinary kind of a concept. Interdisciplinary is almost gone. As learners and students, we should always focus on three things. One is self-discipline. If you do not have the self-discipline, it's very difficult to focus on the topic which you are working on. As a facilitator or a coach, it's very important to inculcate that kind of a behavior in a child. The second one is academic integrity. Information is everywhere. So when you're getting an assignment, will you use GPT kind of an application to solve it, or will you do it yourself? That's a call you have to make as a student. There is no technology which can check that. It's all about academic integrity, a behavioral thing which needs to be taken care. And lastly, with technology, one of the biggest challenge we are seeing is kids no longer are sitting in the classroom. I see kids lying down and studying. I've seen kids sitting in a wrong posture and actually attending classes. So self-care suddenly becomes a very important thing, which used to be a big problem for working professionals. Today, kids have to worry about this. It's high time we start looking beyond learning ability and start developing the learning agility in the child. That's where we need to make the right transition today.
Thanks a lot, Shivu. One thing I find interesting about Belakoo, a lot of educational institutions, especially for rural or underprivileged education, focus only on STEM. That's where the jobs seem to be. What inspired you to bring in the arts part of STEAM? What specific arts do you look into, and how has it helped your students?
In India, honestly speaking, STEM education has not been a big challenge for us. We have embraced science and maths from day one. I don't think any child will hear, I don't want to do science or I don't want to do maths here, right? I mean, that STEM has never been a challenge in India. What has happened is there is a huge influence of the West on different parts of India. When West is trying to learn from East, East is trying to adapt from the West. We go through these cycles all the time. What we found out was when you start looking at engineering students, when you look at problem solving, the way of problem solving today, apart from all the different tools we have, is design thinking suddenly became a big thing. Right? Everybody is talking about design thinking. If you really do a double click on design thinking, it's nothing but empathizing. Right? It's nothing but adding that A part to the entire engineering. The focus always has to be on the STEAM and not just on the STEM, because arts plays a very, very important role in shaping your personality, whether it's your music, whether it's your crafts, whether it's your arts, whether it's your dances. Everything has something to offer. That's the reason why we wanted to tell our kids it is not a hobby. If you like dance, you can create a career around that itself. Do not drop this in your 11th and 12th, because as parents, it's very natural to say, hey, you're a very good artist, stop it for 2 years, focus on your studies, go back to this afterwards. You'll never go back. Many of our kids, many of our friends have actually lost out on these opportunities because somebody misguided them and told them you cannot succeed in these different fields. Everybody has some ability. Everybody has some motivation, but the opportunity part is missing. When you have this motivation, ability, and opportunity together, that's where the success comes. Ability is never the question. It's about the motivation and the opportunity. As a focus on the STEAM, we want to motivate kids and make them do what they're good at, to follow their passion. At the same time, we want to let them know where this passion will lead them. One child came to me, very privileged child, came to me and said, my mom wants me to drop arts. She wants me to focus on science. I said, what do you like? The child told me I like arts and chemistry. I'm asked to drop arts right now because my mom wants me to study chemistry. I didn't have an answer to this child. I told, give me a day's time. I'll get back to you and find out a career which will actually give you good success. Success is nothing to do with the money. It's to do with you have an ability, you have an opportunity, and if you're motivated to do it, nothing like it, right? That's the best success you can have. I wanted to find a career which will make this child successful. I did some research. I was very glad to find actually something very close to what he wanted to do. And you'll be surprised. In Europe, there is a huge demand for someone with a major in chemistry and minor in arts, or major in arts and chemistry, mainly for the museums, painting curators. You need someone with both chemistry and arts knowledge. It was very interesting to see that there is actually a degree in London which actually gives an opportunity to go in that direction. So I told this child that you don't have to drop anything. You can just continue with the minor option. The child is doing that right now. Very happy doing it because there's so many opportunities the child has found. That's where the opportunity comes into picture. That's the reason why I feel A is very important in this whole equation of STEM.
That's amazing to be able to amalgamate science side as well as the art side because we need both. One of the things you said earlier, which is that scaling up is not easy when it's face to face and technology can scale up. There's a need to scale up even face to face efforts. The world has so many people, including India has 1.4 billion people, most of who don't end up in college. What can we do to support you in scaling up what you're doing at Belakoo?
We all have recognized that technology is omnipresent. Knowledge is democratic, which means we got it all around us and we have 24/7 access to information. If each one of our employees of Synopsys or anybody in the Silicon Valley, if they identify this and work with any school nearby, I'm not even saying come and be a part of Belakoo. Be a part of some school, given that 1 or 2 hours per week, and see the difference you can make in a child. You need to see it yourself to understand the impact you can make on a particular person. You'll be amazed with the result you will see. You might not get a thank you right away. Trust me, 5 years down the line, you will have a note in your mailbox or an email from this child where you just had a 1 hour discussion with this child and actually the dreams were found based on your discussion with this child. The child got this confidence because of your talk. That's the reason why I encourage people to be a part of this impact. Irrespective of where you are, please be a part of this, any NGOs which is close by. Work with education, school education, whichever you're passionate, right? You might be passionate working on natural disasters, for example. You might be passionate about sustainability. You might be passionate about rural education. You might be passionate about tribal education. Wherever you think you can make a difference, please be a part of those NGOs. I'm sure you'll find a number of NGOs around you who will be looking out for volunteers. It's never the money which the NGOs want. It's the right people with the right passion who wants to be a part of this NGO to make a difference. And more people come into the NGO, the whole impact multiplies in numbers. That's exactly what we want to see. So that's the call for action I have for all the people who are listening and also your kids who want to be a part of this journey.
Thank you for sharing that, Shivoo.
One of my favorite philosophy of Japan is the Ikigai. If you really look at Ikigai, it basically talks about the same 3 circles. When you have something, what you love and what pays well and what you're good at, you're very successful if you get all these 3 intersections in your life. Sometimes you get these 2 intersections of 2 circles, which is perfectly fine. You can always strive for the other one. I feel if it is something is worth doing, it is definitely worth doing well. So without your hard work, without that passion, I don't think anything will fructify in your life. It's a good opportunity for all of us to understand that we really need to do what we love. We will end up in a better place if we continue in that.
I totally, wholeheartedly agree with you. One of the challenges I've seen as I was traveling through India, there are these very lucrative MNC jobs, as they call multinational corporations. Most of them are in the area of information technology, computer technology, and now artificial intelligence. So naturally, a lot of people will gravitate towards those jobs because they pay good money. A lot of these people may never work in any other field. Once they are in that, the country needs many more things. How can you help students find that balance between the money versus the ikigai?
People get motivated by the stories they hear around them. I've been a throughout engineer. I've never lost focus on my engineering field. I've always tried to be up to date on technologies. I have done a number of courses which is required for my professional growth. Recently, I did an AI course with IIT Mumbai, which is required for me to drive it. Because end of the day, when you're heading your R&D team, if you're not 10 steps ahead of the curve, if you're not at the far end of the technology, you will never catch up. you will never be able to figure out what's going to hit you next. I'm in the team of Janaya in Synopsys right now. Again, Janaya was completely foreign to me. Whenever there is a technology shift, that's the best time to enter because you can learn a lot. That's when you actually have to insert yourself. If you put in the right effort, you can actually ride the wave. I always tell engineers, never lose focus on what you're supposed to do. That's your primary 10 to 12 hours of your day. Don't lose focus on that part of it. At the same time, you need something which satisfies your heart. Your job might satisfy your mind and take care of everything else around it. Some of us are very lucky to have that in our job itself. I'm very happy to be a part of Synopsys, which gives me enough opportunities to satisfy my heart itself. I can say my heart is bigger. I have more things I want to achieve. When I work on other things, it gives me that satisfaction. But I might not have the right skill. If you don't upskill yourself in those areas, there is no way you will be able to make that contribution. When I figured out that education is my passion, I had to go deeper into education. My PhD actually is in education. I actually entered the area of education very deeply, understand what is the pedagogy of teaching, what is the pedagogy of learning, what does it take, how do you compare your passion towards the student outcome. Just because you have good teachers, can you really say that you'll get better outcome? Is there a correlation between these things? This is what I actually did my study on. And it gave me a lot of insight in terms of education. The deeper you go in any area, whichever your passion is, you'll gain more expertise. More expertise will give you enough opportunities for you to work. You need to balance both. These kind of stories, what I have seen, has inspired students, gives them an opportunity that, yes, I don't have to drop something to learn something else. I can do this together. For example, I loved writing books. My English vocabulary might have around 800 words. That's good enough for business communication. That's more than enough for me to communicate with someone. That's more than enough to express my ideas, my passion to somebody else. So when I started writing a book, then I thought, can I really write a book without writing? There's no way I can find out. So I published my first book, which was a summary of my 50 different life experiences. So I named it 50 Shades of Life. Got a good response, never stopped writing. I published another book called 50 Colors of Love. Then I thought, why don't I try my hand in a textbook, which might be required for semiconductor industry. I published my first technical book, which is the SOC Physical Design. Recently, I published another book with Veena, my co-author, on system on chip architecture. I'm working on 3 more books right now, which is going to come in the next 2 years. I'm writing a book on management, a first-time manager's handbook. I know there are many handbooks which is available. Each one of us have a different way of saying the same thing. I'm hoping that will resonate with a few new managers. A lot of things have changed as a manager. The kind of skills which is required for a manager is very different than what was required 25 years back and what is required right now. I'm writing that book right now with a friend of mine who's a CMO in a company. Her name is Shivananda. So I partnered with her and writing that book. So there are many books which I'm writing right now. I'm hoping that journey doesn't end. So I've never left my passion, right? Whatever I wanted to do with my job, I've been able to manage it. And you'll be very surprised. I even acted last year. It was one of the big movie in Kannada industry. I was very fortunate to be a part of this team. I've never done theater in my life. I used to get stage fear when I go to the stage and talk in front of people. I thought the best way to actually face my fear was to actually do it myself. I did a movie and it's on Amazon. I was very surprised with the results I got and the responses I got. I'm very thankful for that. It's all about how you balance it, how you're able to manage these things together. This is definitely doable. There is absolutely no reason why you cannot do it.
I can see a beautiful title emerging in front of me. Dr. Shivoo Koteshwar does Collywood. You've been in VLSI, not just in engineering, but in management for many years, EDA, as well as in semiconductors with MediaTek and Synopsys. You've also been in education for several years, including a PhD in education. And now you're also into Kannada movies, into writing. How on earth do you find the time? I can see the passion, but how do you find the time to do all this, plus have a family?
So I have 2 kids. One is 23. He's doing psychology in Flame University. He was born in US. He might go back to US to do his master's. The second one is doing sports management in Jain College. He's in second year right now. So both my kids are pretty independent right now. My wife works as a HR manager in a company. She leads one of the HR team there. She works for a company called Strain Technology, US company. The biggest support I have is my family. My parents live with us. They've been a biggest support for me, my wife, and my kids. I have an extended family. I grew up in a joint family. So we had like 15 people in my house when I grew up. My sister stays 2 houses next to mine. Other sister stays very close by. Even if we have a small get together in my house, you will end up with 80 people. It's the family fabric we have. My aunts are like my moms. Cousins are my brothers and sisters. It makes a huge difference. The kids also find an ecosystem which helps them be focused and have support from the entire family. That gives me a lot of time, honestly speaking. Not everybody is so fortunate that they get that kind of a support. That gives me a lot of time. Plus, I stretch myself a lot. A lot of people tell me not to do it. You're already 50 years, don't push it. I say, I can't even think of any other life. So I'm enjoying. I, of course, watch out my diet. I take care of my exercises. At the same time, I don't want to lose out on anything. I've never complained with work or with other things I do. Sometimes I do get dings from my family that, I'm not taking them on a vacation. This whole concept of balance is not easy, honestly speaking. You go through this curves on and off, but so far so good. I've been able to manage it.
That's amazing. Gen AI and education are a very interesting combination. Some people think that it's going to mess up young students' education. Some people believe that it can be a great aid in personalizing education. What are your thoughts on that?
I recently saw a Gartner picture of hype cycle. Like any other technology, if you really look at the expectations and the time, it goes through that initial phase of innovation and peak. It goes through this whole trough of disillusionment in terms of what to expect from this technology. Slowly, it gets into the enlightenment state and the productivity stage. That's so true for AI, Gen AI, and education. There is an inflated expectations in terms of what all it can do. Somebody told that you have 98% correct answers from ChatGPT. Suddenly, within a week, I heard that you're 55%. So there is a trough of disillusionment going on right now. It will go back up and we'll reach a stage where it will plateau. That's where maximum productivity will come. Earlier, it will always start with Gen AI technologies, will always be very assistive in nature, and eventually it will get into the generative stage. Right now, we are in the assistive stage. In the assistive stage, you can argue and debate that it is doing plus or minus. The moment you look at Gen AI in the generative stage, that's where you'll see the bigger value. As a company also in Synopsys, if you really look at our Gen AI journey, we've had some recent announcements in the company. If you read it closely, you'll see that most of our solutions is around improving the productivity, optimization, and assistive technologies. I'm going to start with that first. As we go along, you will hear more about generation in the coming years from Synopsys. That's the journey which every technology has taken, whether it's Synopsys or education. We are in that stage right now. So there is a lot of hype created. I personally feel this is the biggest plus we have for education. We can make a huge difference with the technology.
You mentioned that you've written a book for first-time managers. Can you give us a preview?
I have divided the manager skill set into different buckets, personalized it. Each of the skill set has a story associated with that. That story is not necessarily mine. I have interviewed multiple managers, multiple leaders, and asked them to think about a situation, give me their anecdotes. It has a wealth of information from different leaders and managers. They have shared their personal stories, which gets connected to the competency required for a first-time manager. Multinational companies in India are called Global Capability Center. We want to show that we are not just good at scale, we are also good at innovation. So if you combine the scale and innovation together, you get a capability center. Almost all the companies in the world have a presence in India on the technology side. When a country has never seen a dip, in the last 23 years I've been in India, it's very different way of looking at your team, looking at your company, looking at compensation. In US, you go through cycles, which actually helps you. It grounds you. It makes you understand that it's cyclic in nature. But in India, it's always been up. When the economy is like this, the skill sets, what is required for you to be grounded, are very different. And a lot of times, because of the rapid growth, people have become managers because the team size have grown up, but they don't have the right skills which might be required for them to take from N to N+1. One wonderful book, which I always recommend everybody to read, is What Got You Here Won't Get You There. The title itself tells it all. The skill set required for you to go from 0 to 1, not necessarily will take you from 1 to 2. So what kind of skill sets you need to develop or competencies you need to develop as a manager, which will help you throughout your journey. That's been the effort with which we started the book. Once it's released, I will give you a copy to edit and review. I'll be more than happy to get your feedback.
Thanks a lot. Back to technology. India has excelled in VLSI design and verification and test, all the activities that are pre-manufacturing. Now there's this huge initiative from the government, and there's a need to bring the supply chain back to India, specifically in manufacturing, even fabs. Do we have the skills in India to be able to do that? The processes and management processes, what will it take to get there?
Very apt question to what we are seeing in the market right now. So there is a push from the government. There is a push from the industries to move in a lot of manufacturing activities to India. When it comes to packaging, we do have the required knowledge and skill set where we can actually set up a complete packaging unit. Board level, we have fantastic expertise. When it comes to pure manufacturing, we do not have the required expertise for us to support the rapid growth the industry might be expecting. That's a reason why government of India is spending millions of dollars like any other country right now on workforce development. There are many different initiatives through Government of India, which is actually helping universities, which is helping startups to put in the right resources, and from the support from the government through the connections with the IITs, they're able to start developing the skill set which might be required, not just for tomorrow, but 5 years down the line. We have started this journey very well. We should be able to address it very effectively. In the coming years, you will see the combined effort of the university, of the government, and the private players is going to take care of this requirement. This is not a new challenge for India. We have seen this earlier in Y2K problems when it hit. We didn't have as many software engineers what we had, but there was an opportunity. Whenever there is an opportunity, the whole system works together to ensure there is talent available to take care of that kind of an opportunity. I'm sure this is one of those where we will be able to address this very effectively, what is required for the industry to thrive here in India.
You and I could be talking all day long. We should do that after a couple of years when you have
Definitely.
more books and more initiatives going. Thank you for all your contributions, and may you continue
very
to
much.
shed the light in every area as you are doing, and to scale it up with the community, with your friends and family, as well as a broader community. If there are ways in which we can support directly, please send us the links so that I can add it along with this talk. And to people
Definitely.
out there, I'm always looking for what's happening around the world. What are the challenges that your community is facing? What is the new world that we are all trying to create? Are there challenges along the way? So please come forward. I would love to hear from you. Shivoo, it's always a joy to talk to you. This is the first time we had a
Same here.
one-on-one conversation, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Shankar. You're doing a wonderful job connecting a lot of different people onto the same platform.